Hello, my name's Hayley Sherrod, and today in our workshop I'm going to show you how to transform some plastic bottles like these and some other household equipment into some very useful and practical ideas for exploring our senses using sense of touch, sight, hearing and smell. If you want to join in today, just get together some of these bottles and some socks and some other items from around the house, and you can help me as we cook along together in today's bottle science workshop. Okay, so our first activity is going to be making ourselves our very own feely tub. This is going to encourage the children to describe, to increase their vocabulary, and to think carefully about what they're feeling. So observation through the sense of touch. Now you can purchase ready-made feely tubs. However, we think we can make one for next to nothing using some household equipment. So I've got here an empty bottle. I've got here some of these slouch socks. I got these quite inexpensively from a supermarket. They're in the sale. So looking for these very stretchy slouch socks. They're the ones to get. So first of all, what we're going to do is to just cut our pop bottle to make ourselves the tub. Best take the top off and then just squeeze, sorry for the noise, squeeze the bottle and then just carefully cut. And of course, as an adult, you'll do this for the children. Apologies for the noise. Just cut round as smoothly as you can, so there are no jagged edges. You can use this leftover top as a little cloche or greenhouse for some plants in the garden, or a rain gauge. So this is what we need for our feely tub. You might want to alter the depth of the tub depending on the size of the children's hands. So get the hand in and feel around in the tub. Just in case there are any rough edges, I'm going to use some insulation tape just to cover up the top of the bottle. Put that round there. Fold that over. There you go. And then you've got your tub. Now, what we need to do is to obscure the contents of the tub, so you're relying upon the sense of touch when you come to describe the object. And for that, we're just going to use one of these slouch socks. You might have some odd socks lying around the house. You can use those for this particular activity too. And the good thing is that the socks themselves are not damaged in the process, so you can just reuse those when it's winter time. So we're going to put on our slouch sock over the end of our tub. And then we've got this top bit here, and that acts as a kind of sock, if you like, to allow the hand to go in, but I can't see inside, so I'm relying upon my sense of touch to describe the objects. You can put into the tub whatever you like. I've got some ideas here. You might have a theme. You could put one item in. You could put several items in. And the idea when doing this is for the child with their hand in the tub to describe the object in terms of what they can feel, not to guess straight away what it is. We want them to practice vocabulary describing the object, not guessing what it is to start with. A clothes peg is a good idea. Cork, pine cone's a popular one. Feather, shell. You could think of better ideas than this, I'm sure, to go into your feely tub. And when the children have got their hand in there, perhaps other children in the class or at home could try to guess what the object is based upon their description. We're looking for useful vocabulary for describing the objects. It might be nice, if you have very young children you're working with, to have, if there are 3 things in the tub, a picture of those 3 objects, perhaps on the whiteboard or a photograph, and so from the description, the child or children in the class can guess which one the child's describing with their hand in there. So again, a very simple way of using some materials you have lying around the house to make an excellent observation tool for the children. Our next activity is all to do with using our sense of hearing to try to identify different objects. And to do that, what I've taken is a smaller drink bottle with a screw on top. And I've put different objects into the bottles, and using a sock, I've covered up the objects. So we're relying upon our sense of initially our hearing. There's also some clues given by the feel of the object. Maybe it's how heavy it feels, maybe how the objects are moving inside. But really we're focusing upon listening carefully and matching the objects. So very simple. Take your bottle. You're kind of, I suppose, limited by the size of the neck, what you can put in. You may get some of the wider smoothie bottles with a wider neck to put some larger objects in. So I'm going to put in some of these shells. Make sure it fits in, just about. Put the top on. Because it may be the case that young children are using these objects, I like to just tape the top up, just so they can't undo the top and get the objects out. Of course, you will make sure that the end of your tape is readily available to you when you're doing this. You could use glue to glue the top up as well, but tape seems to work quite well. And you can easily remove that yourself and replace the objects if you need to. And then a selection of socks. Opaque ones are good, then you can't peek in to see the contents. So put it in. And already there's an interesting sound coming from that bottle. Now, for the top, you could tie a knot in it. You could put elastic band or a clothes peg on top, just to stop the children peeking inside to start with. But also it's important when they've had a go at describing and guessing to actually reveal the contents easily. And the clothes peg lets you do that. After they've spent a lot of time guessing what could be in there, of course. Now, what I've done here is prepare sets of 3 bottles with the same contents, but different coverings. And in a group, what I would do is to give each child or each pair a bottle, let them listen to what's in their container, and try in the class to find their set of 3. I'm looking for the objects that are the same in 3 bottles. And that will give you an instant group, well not instant, after a little while, a group of 3 children to work together, or groups of 4, or groups of 2, whatever would suit you for your next activity. I've got some very interesting objects in here, but all things you could find quite easily. Maybe you could guess what's in there. With socks that are slightly more translucent, you can see the objects sometimes. Again, if you want to stop children doing that, use some very opaque socks instead. And try to have some things that are more unusual, perhaps. It's often extremely quiet in the room when children are listening very carefully to the contents of their particular bottle. So I'm going to put a slide up next to show you the contents of the bottles, but you can, I think, imagine what you might be using yourselves to make this kind of equipment. And then you could perhaps use the bottles as instruments later for some music as well. I thought now we would focus upon observation using our sense of smell. And for this one, we're going to need a bottle with a flip top that has a sort of valve or kind of membrane in it. A lot of sports drinks have these. We're going to use this bottle to have some objects that smell, and then when we squeeze the bottle, we'll have the scent near our nose and we can try to identify what could be in the bottle. As usual, as a theme, as you might know from the previous activities, we won't know what's in there, have to use our sense of smell to try to guess, and then at the end we can reveal the contents and see if we were right or not. So what we're going to do is just expose the top of our bottle, lift off the top, and then just squeeze the bottle, and then we'll be able to detect the scent and think to ourselves and discuss perhaps what it might be. If you don't know the name of it, maybe we could think of something it smells like in our everyday life and kind of compare it to that. So to make our bottle, we're going to take our bottle nice and clean and washed out and dry. I've got some items here from the garden that smell nice. I've got some lavender, some mint and some rosemary. You could use fruits like orange, lemon, lime or grapefruit, strawberries. And you could also have things like caramel smell or chocolate or coffee. All these things are quite useful to have to smell. So you might find that your herbs that you have are quite pungent already, especially if you give them a rub beforehand before putting them in. You might want to add impact to the scent by adding some of these natural flavourings. I'm not using any essential oils today. I'm going to be using just the kind of flavourings you might use in cakes and biscuits. I've got a lemon one here, a strawberry one, and a mint one. So what I'm going to do is enhance the smell of the mint by using some of this peppermint essence as well. To do that, I'm going to take the top off a cotton wool ball, just put a small amount of the extract onto there. That's going to go into the bottle, and it's on the cotton wool bud, so there's nothing going to be squirted out as we smell. In there, take some of the mint. Again, give that a good rub. Put it in on top with the lid. And before you do that, you're going to use a pencil just to make a hole in that membrane. It just stops there being a build-up of pressure and the smell being ejected out too quickly. This hole, using blue tack and a pencil, we've just found in practice makes it easier to squeeze the bottle and have the scent coming out. So you can see there I've got a hole in the membrane with that pencil, and that seems to work better. Put that on top, and again you can tape up the bottle with some insulation tape. Again, make these up nice and fresh. You've got fresh herbs in there, so use this quite quickly, and then after that, take it out and give it a wash. So you can see from the, yes, the smell of fresh mint. And the children might think perhaps that reminds them of toothpaste, perhaps, or even chewing gum. So that smell they could be aware of already. Put that into the sock, so you can't see. You might want to make sure that you've got a nice hole in that membrane by using the pencil again. Just as a clear hole there, that's better. So you can waft the smell there. And top on, and that will keep for a day or two. But again, I said if you want to use the fresh herbs, make them up freshly on the day you're going to use it. Nice to have a selection of different smells. I've got a selection here. What I've done is to colour code these. You'll see they've got coloured stickers on the top. And what you can do is to match those to the cards, because sometimes children are not able to maybe know the names of some of these plants or smells. There's rose, strawberry, caramel and orange. I like to have an example of the real object in the bottle with the scent as well. So you can see on the back of the cards I'll have the appropriate coloured dot to match up to the appropriate bottle. And that makes it easier then to double check what you've found out. I hope you enjoy doing that. It's quite simple, quite a nice thing to do, and you can think about some of the things you might want to use in the bottle. I would steer clear of using essential oils in case of allergies, so stick to the flavourings that you'd get to use in cakes and baking. And always double check if you're not sure. So over to you, try that out, see what you think. Another idea for using some of these plastic bottles is to make something called a find it bottle or a mystery bottle. And it's based upon a toy or game you can buy, which involves searching for various objects, hidden in this case in lots of plastic beads. You could spend £15 or so on that, or you could make your own much more easily. And what we've done is taken normal plastic bottles, and better to get a wide-necked bottle for this, like a smoothie bottle. That means you can fit larger objects inside. And to hide the objects, we've used either play sand or these iron-on beads you can get quite cheaply. The good thing is you can reuse these later if you need to. So either sand or these beads. And within the bottle, you can then hide all kinds of objects and get the children to look for them. This one, for instance, a label says, there are 5 objects in the bottle, can you find them? So again, it's about the person trying to find all 5 objects. Keep a count of them and make a note of them. You might want to have a look at using some coins, a nice maths link here. There are several coins hidden in the bottle, and the question asks how much is in the bottle. So you've got to find the coins first of all and then add them up. You might wish to have the answer somewhere so the person can check their results. A nice one is to have something perhaps with a common theme. Here there are 7 objects in the bottle, and for this one we've got a sheet for ticking off. So here the person can tick off the object as they find them. Again, you can experiment whether you use sand or whether you use the beads. It's quite a nice idea to put them all in. And you might have a theme, for instance, then with a question, what do the objects have in common? And have a think about that and get that matched up. So you can see here lots of different ideas. This one has buttons. And then what colour are all the buttons? So again, they'll camouflage quite well within the bottle. Lots of different ideas. I also like the idea of having a question, which item on the photograph is not in the bottle? So again, that's a bit of a different way of phrasing the question. So by looking in and matching them off, which item from this picture is missing from the bottle? And then finally, an idea here, again, another ticking off idea. Finally, maybe you want to ask a question, for instance, which of the objects is the odd one out? So after finding all 7 objects, which one is the odd one out? So as well as having a common theme, there are lots of questions you can ask around the objects within the bottle. I'm going to show you how to make a very cheap version of these bottles by using some of this shredded paper, a plastic bottle and some objects. So I'll get rid of these bits and pieces and then I'll show you how to make one of these. We're going to make our own version of the Find It bottle here. I've had this, well, I say my sons have had this particular example for at least 16 years. And of all the items listed, there's a penny. We've not found the penny in 15 years of trying. So maybe you would like to add something to the list, which isn't there. A bit of a mean trick, perhaps, but something to keep the person engaged with that particular activity for a very long time. So what we're going to do now is take our wide-necked bottle, and rather than using sand or plastic beads, I'm going to use some paper from our shredder, a great way of using up some of this resource. So I've got a selection of items here. You might wish to have a theme. I wish to ask the children taking part in the activity if they can spot a common theme as they spot the objects, or maybe even have something that could be the odd one out. So what we're going to do is to put some of the paper into our bottle. A bit messy, but that's okay. Stick it in. And then insert the items in as we go along. You want to make sure you've got enough space in the bottle to allow the paper and the objects to move around. It's a lot of fun. If you have in your school a system of buddies, perhaps older pupils helping the younger children, maybe the older ones could make the bottles for the younger children and get them to find the objects. I'm going to put those in. Someone has shredded some of the shiny paper. I can see here there's some sparkly bits in there as well. Push them in. Push the objects in. Make sure they all fit. And it's surprising how tricky it can be to find all the objects once they're in there. It's well worth making a note or photograph or list of the items in the bottle so the person taking part in the activity knows what they're looking for. I think that might be enough. I want enough space to allow the paper and the objects to move around freely in there. I'm going to put all items in there. There's about 30 items in that particular large bottle there, but I think we'll stick with the 9 objects that I've got. Put all the paper in. Give them a good shake round. At that point, I'm going to put the top on. If I'm happy, there's enough room in there to move the objects around so I can see them. It's not too tightly packed. Happy with that. I'm going to use some tape to tape up the bottleneck. Just secure that on with the tape. And for my bottle, I'm going to attach some questions with this parcel tag. So I'm going to tie that on. So my particular bottle doesn't have a checklist or a photograph. It has a question, 9 objects, can you find them all? So that's 9 to count out, so you can make a little note of that. On the back, I've got some extra questions. Do the objects have anything in common? Is there a common theme for the objects? Perhaps you spotted that. And then finally, is there an odd one out? That's a great way of getting the children to pick an object and think of a reason for it being separate or different to the rest of them. So again, lots of scope there for looking, for observation skills, and for thinking more deeply about the kind of questions you're going to be asking. You might want to, if you have the equipment, introduce some objects that are magnetic and non-magnetic, and then use your magnet wand to perhaps use that to identify the magnetic and non-magnetic materials within the bottle. So again, a further idea. You will find many more ideas about using bottles on PSTT's Science for One resource sheet, and we'll put a link for that onto this video. One more idea using a bottle is making a flitter jar. So what we've got here is water, or you could use baby oil or glycerin, and in the bottle we've got some sparkly bits of glitter and little objects here. So what we're going to do is to put the lights off and just shine our torch through the bottle and look at the wall and see what we can see. You can talk about different densities. If you're using glycerin or baby oil, you might notice a difference in the way that the objects fall through the liquid. It's quite therapeutic and relaxing watching the objects just move down the liquid. If you are using a glass jar, be very careful. You can use plastic. The glass one gives a nice effect, but again, you just judge which material's best for the group you're working with. So our last 2 ideas aren't actually using bottles, but I couldn't resist showing them to you because they're really great ideas that we've used in class to explore the senses and help to develop children's vocabulary. This one is a feely wall, so it's just scraps of different materials, some fabrics, got some plastic here, some plastic mesh, just secured with some tape onto this piece of plastic. You could use cardboard or just the wall. In this bag are the corresponding pieces of material that match these, and so it's the job of the person undertaking the task to put their hand in, find a piece of the material, feel it, describe it, and see, without looking at it, if they can match it to the particular material on the feely wall. They'll be talking a little bit about the texture, how the material feels, and just seeing if they can match up the material to the one on the wall. Surprisingly hard, without your sense of sight, to match them up. I've got a feeling this one is the felt. I'm not wholly sure. Let's take it out and have a look. It is. It's really quite tricky, so it's really great to have different textures. This one's got some velvet and then some of the polyester. So have different textures and fabrics and materials to try that out. A really fun way of doing that. You could use your feely tub you made earlier on the bag and put the fabrics in there. That's another idea to use the bottle. So that's the feely wall. So again, not strictly bottle science here, but a really fantastic way of using senses other than sight. These are our feely dominoes. So to take part in the activity, a blindfold is required. I've prepared these dominoes in advance, so I'm going to use my sense of touch to see if I can match up the particular type of material. It's good to have these in a tray, so in practice, it's good to have the items in a tray or an area where the person knows to feel within that area. So I've quickly got, this is very rough, those two match up, and you'll see I've got some tape in between to indicate there's a separate object attached here. That's also rough, but not quite the same as the other object. So I'm going to feel around. Again, a person helping could help to guide the person's hand to where the objects are. So you'll see that these will form a rectangle matching up beginning to end. So very simple, just some cardboard, some tape and some everyday objects that are big enough to be able to let the children feel the objects. They can describe them, they can perhaps identify them too, but the idea is to match up the dominoes into a complete rectangle. So over to you to try that yourselves using some recycled and leftover materials.